you're watching this, I'm dead.
Developed by Warner Brothers Games Montreal and released in October of 2022, Gotham Knights is an action role-playing game set in Gotham where you play as Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, and Robin to protect the city after the death of Batman. Kumusta? It's Gamer After Shift. I'll be scoring 4 things that I think are the most important elements of a game: gameplay design, combat experience, narrative immersion, and customization and progression. The game is very straightforward. Play your preferred hero and patrol every night to clear Gotham's crimes while progressing the story. Criminal acts are divided to 2. Opportunistic crime has informants to interrogate to unlock premeditated crimes. Careful not to fully defeat them or you can't interrogate them.
Tell me what I want to know.
I'll talk!
That was easy.
Premeditated crimes have challenges included like organ trafficking or crime scene investigation. Apart from interrogation, you can unlock them by being in proximity of an active crime. Quick tip: the clues you get every night equals to the amount of difficult crimes for the next night. Try to max your clues every night because higher clues means harder premeditated crimes, so more chances of better rewards. You get clues from criminals and you get a max of 12 clue bars seen in the upper right part of the map. Apart from patrolling, there are a lot of challenges to complete in Gotham. Some are more fun than the others, but to be completely honest, they are mostly lackluster. There's Batman's Cash, which requires you to complete a parkour challenge, giving you XP and items. Another parkour challenge is hero-specific that unlocks color palettes. I dislike this one because it's too difficult for customization's sake. Then there's also a Batcycle challenge. Didn't do it, bad driver, so let me know in the comments what it's like. There is a collection, but it's bad. It requires ton of patience. The Historia pages alone nearly costed me my sanity. Batarangs are more tolerable, I guess, and I don't want to talk about landmarks. I didn't like the UI, felt very outdated, but to be fair, it's not janky, it's just hard to look at. By the way, opening the bad computer does not pause the game. Learned that the hard way, so be careful. There's a co-op mode called Heroic Assault, which is basically a raid equivalent for an MMORPG. You get in with your team, defeat waves of enemies, then finish the level and get rewards. The final boss provides you with legendary drops, which makes you very strong as a whole. This is not so bad if it weren't so grindy and repetitive, because if I want to grind, I would be playing something else like a survival sandbox or an MMO, but not this. Traversal is a core feature in Gotham Knights. Patrolling the city means being out and about and mostly on tall infrastructure for a better vantage point. That means grappling, jumping, and a whole lot of parkouring. The grapple feels like I was playing a Spider-Man game, especially when you do it sequentially. Good thing Knighthood provides variety. Overall, you get a Batcycle, grappling, and Knighthood apart from the standard mobility options like sprinting and jumping or even fast travels. Quick tip: Robin's Knighthood is the most precise out of all Knighthoods and seems to be designed for stealth. Make sure you fully utilize it for stealth combat in open spaces. Given the source material, there's nothing really surprising about the world building. The only job they have to do is to bring it to life, and I think they did a very good job. Take this with a grain of salt because I know the Arkham series exists, but we're not comparing the game, we're reviewing it as it is. The soundtrack is somewhat weak and forgettable. I can't remember the music apart from the one thing from Harley's Blackgate sequence because it was an actual song. Overall, the general features of the game is built on a solid foundation of simplicity and is elevated by its source material, which are DC comic book characters. The most interesting feature is definitely the traversal system, making exploration a big thing for Gotham Knights. Had the game not have the DC IP, I don't think it would have been good. The gameplay is pretty average at best, so without DC, I think this would have been a pretty substandard game. Gotham Knights on its own is an okay game. The gameplay is pretty standard and provides satisfying exploration. Nothing jaw-dropping and spectacular, which is ironic given this game came 7 years after Arkham Knights. At the end of the day, it's fun, but nothing felt special and probably worse without the DC IP. Also, the UI is just blatantly ugly for me. I'm giving gameplay design a 3 out of 5. The combat is a brawler-type fast-paced action. Enemies will detect you immediately through line of sight unless you're in stealth. Familiarizing yourself with enemies is key to mastery as they feature combat mechanics that can make or break your encounter. Quick tip: Drone Masters and Talons are almost always a menace. Eliminate them fast as they can make your life very hard. Do the same for any enemies that features long-range attack and make sure you're checking those vantage points for potential snipers. Standard offensive moves are present in the form of normal and heavy attacks, both in melee and ranged form. Defensive options are dodge and a perfect dodge that allows you to counterattack, adding a bit of skill ceiling along with timed attacks, which are improved attacks that needs input timing to execute. The combat is pretty easy to grasp and standard, and if you don't like direct combat, there's a stealth system that you can play around with. Quick tip, you can use your range attacks to attract enemies in an area, allowing you to reposition yourself for stealth attacks. Be careful, since if enemies sees an unconscious body, their markers will turn yellow and they will know you're lurking and will start investigating. There's also Momentum, which are unique character abilities that costs Momentum Segment, which are the purple bars in the lower right corner of the screen that fills up during combat. Momentum skills offer different mechanical purposes. They must also be unlocked by completing certain tasks. I recommend doing this as a priority to make your combat efficient and enjoyable. Another priority is unlocking Knighthood that gives you ultimate skills. Each character also has a combat expertise. Batgirl has a lot of tools for survivability and interacting with technology. Nightwing is an expert of mobility and has more tools to get momentum faster. He also gets a dedicated skill tree for co-op battles. Red Hood is a master brawler and gunman that can snipe enemies from afar or throw them around. Lastly, Robin is a master assassin that excels at stealth and elemental damage. The combat is very fluid, but admittedly, the inability to target enemies is quite annoying. It's so hard to eliminate a high priority target at times, and I just can't do anything about it but use an AoE skill and hope for the best. The combat choreography and animation are pleasing to the eye. Each character has a specific fighting styles and it visually shows. The finishers are also very satisfying to look at, and takedowns also has personality in them, making stealth quite addictive if you have the patience for it. I played in the medium difficulty, but overall the combat is pretty solid. There's no overly complicated mechanic, the optional tutorials are very helpful. I pretty much rank this as the best feature of the game, as I'm mostly motivated to finish the game because of how combat is extremely fun. It is truly where the game shines. I just hope the targeting system was better, but pretty much the combat is quite satisfying. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. I will not be spoiling the plot despite its blandness and simplicity. In Gotham Knights, the story begins with the death of Batman and Commissioner James Gordon, which plunges Gotham City into chaos. As they investigate Batman's last case, they uncover a secret society known as the Court of Owls, which has been manipulating Gotham from the shadows for centuries. The heroes also face off against the League of Assassins led by Talia al Ghul, who warns them of an impending war between the two factions. There are some twists and turns in the plot, but majority of my satisfaction came from the early points of the story, which was the investigation and sleuthing. I gotta say, I was expecting more from the story since it already has a solid source material, but unfortunately, most of the narrative is quite lacking for me. Besides the main storyline involving the Court of Owls, there are several narrative side stories featuring Batman's iconic villains. And I'm not really that much of an expert with some of the rogue gallery of Batman, so I'm not sure what was the driver for Mr. Freeze's action, and let me know down in the comments. Personality-wise, they're pretty much fine. I don't have much interaction, to be honest, with these members of the Bat family. My only referential experience was reading Injustice, but that's probably not the best for cross-referencing. Overall, Robin and Red Hood were the most memorable to me as someone who's not well educated in the Batman lore. The story features no player agency and follows a linear path, but each character has unique interactions during some scenarios, so I guess that's as close as we can get to making a choice. Overall, the story is fine at best. The opening sequence and Batman's death to me are the actual narrative highlights. I'm quite disappointed because for an already established source material, this is all that we get. I'm giving narrative immersion a 2 out of 5. So which character should you use? You can cycle through every character in a single playthrough, but if you want to main a character, pick Robin if you want to play around stealth. Robin's stealth arsenal is incredibly powerful with his elemental quirks to back him up if stealth isn't going to be an option. If I recall correctly, Robin's kit is the most selfish one, making him an excellent character for solo runs. Nightwing is an excellent combo combatant if you want to jump around a lot and move across the field with speed and precision. His team leader skill also makes him the best character during co-op, as he can support his team beside his great offensive capacity. His aerial combos are quite satisfying but tricky to land in succession, so if you want some challenge, pick him. Batgirl is the best pick for safety, as her kit allows for the worst mistake possible. She can revive herself thrice with Second Wind. While she doesn't deal a whole lot of damage apart from her beatdown, she is by far the most defensive out of all the knights. She can also be a bit stealthy due to her capability to manipulate technology. Red Hood is basically a damage powerhouse. Build him crit and invest all your skills in range, and you can pretty much snipe anyone from a distance with headshots. Then for direct encounters, you can use his normal range and reload with his two-fisted reload. With Red Hood, you're gonna have a lock and load type of gameplay. You can be careless in allotting ability points, but not in the early game. I suggest to invest early on those that will make your life easier based on the combat style you want to focus on. You get 30 ability points at maximum level and 40 if you're playing New Game Plus. More than enough for what you mostly need. You can even get more by completing collections if that's your thing. Gears are pretty important to your gameplay. They can further improve your combat style to complement your skills, since gear can increase your elemental affinity, your crit rate, and damage, and some gears have an extra perk attached to them that can piece your build all together. I didn't really do a lot of grinding since the rewards you get for completing story chapters is actually more than enough for me, but clear those crimes if you're hoping to get something shiny, or heroic assault if you don't mind the grind. Much like the gameplay design, customization and progression are pretty standard and unremarkable. However, I have to say the abilities are great. You can really shift the way you play by the choice of your abilities, but that becomes rather dull at the end when you're overloaded with ability points. Overall, neat but unremarkable. I'm giving customization and progression 3 out of 5. Gotham Knights isn't bad on its own, but as a successor to a big and renowned franchise, it felt really short. It would have probably done well had it built its own identity away from the Arkham series and treated it as a different game. Instead, it tried to reinvent something that has already been proven, tried, and tested. Not sure what the future for the game is. There was a speculation of a DLC from last year, but never really manifested, so maybe the future is bleak. Overall, I rank the game as 3 out of 5, nothing remarkable, and as the game succeeding Batman's Arkham series, the expectations are quite high, and understandably so. I think what would have worked is keeping the formula of the Arkham games while updating its visual engine, otherwise a fresh new take instead of modifying what's already been considered successful. I think it might be better to reinvent the series and change the direction rather than piggybacking on Arkham series success. Nevertheless, I still look forward to more DC games, more comic book games to be honest. I had tons of fun playing with Marvel's Midnight Suns, which let me know if you think I should do a review because that's also an old game. Is the game worth Aftershift? Because the game gives you the options to either commit to progressing the story or to just patrol around and casually grind solo or with friends, it is Aftershift approved. The game is great after a long day at work, at school, or at home. That's pretty much it, folks. I urge you to check out my first video that reviews Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn to see how much I've improved and what more do I need to improve from today's video. If you want me to review a game, leave down in the comments below and I'll check them out. Don't get too tired as there's more to life than just labor. This is Gamer Aftershift and I'll see you around.